In the 15th century, staring into a dark, endless ocean meant facing the abyss. No map, no GPS, no guarantee of returning. Miscalculate by a few degrees and you drift for weeks. If the wind stops, the sun claims you. Sail too far and the sea itself might consume you into horizons that never lead back home. The ocean was a question mark. For ages, these waters were walls keeping the world small. But within a single century, those walls became highways. The age of exploration from the early 1400s to the late 1600s was the big bang of globalization. It connected continents, changed the food on your plate, reshaped cultures, and altered the balance of power by permanently linking the world's masses into a united global network. The architects of this global shift didn't start at the top of the food chain. They were the most unlikely instigators. In the early 1400s, Europe wasn't the dominant global superpower it would eventually become. Compared to the glittering wealth of Ming China, the mighty Ottoman Empire, or the gold-rich kingdoms of West Africa, Europe was a fragmented, squabbling backwater. But they had an obsession. The wealth of the world flowed along the Silk Road. If you lived in Europe and wanted silk from China or precious gems from India, it meant relying on a massive overland network of camel caravans across Asia. By the time these treasures reached the eastern Mediterranean, the powerful maritime republics of Venice and Genoa controlled the tap. They sold these goods to the rest of Europe at a staggering markup. The ultimate prize? Spices, pepper, cinnamon, cloves. A single sack was worth a fortune. To get them, you paid a massive cut to Arab, Turkish, and Italian middlemen. Meanwhile, at the opposite end of the continent, sitting on the absolute fringe of the known world, was the Kingdom of Portugal. Economically poor and geographically isolated, Portugal was wedged between hostile Castile and the vast, unmapped void of the Atlantic Ocean. They were blocked from expanding east and completely cut off from the lucrative Mediterranean spice trade. But desperation breeds ambition. To survive and grow, Portugal needed to find its own source of gold. This tiny strip of land became the launchpad that changed history. From the edge of Europe, they decided to do the unthinkable. Use the treacherous waters to stretch their reach halfway around the globe. Portugal possessed something else: political will. A royal prince named Henry, later known as the Navigator, became the driving force behind a systematic obsession with the horizon. The year is 1415. Portugal captures the North African port of Ceuta. Inside, they witness caravans from the deep Sahara laden with gold and spices. They realize the continent's vast wealth is bypassing them completely. But for Henry, wealth was only half the equation. Driven by the Crusades, he wanted to outflank Eastern empires. It was the ultimate medieval cocktail, a collision of religious faith and raw greed. Henry rarely sailed himself. Instead, he poured wealth into Lisbon's docks, buying the world's best maps and mathematics to bypass the caravans and reach the source directly. But a massive psychological barrier stood in the way: the Sea of Darkness. Sailors believed that beyond Cape Bojador, the ocean boiled and the winds never allowed a return. In 1434, Captain Gil Eanes pushed through the terror and finally crossed the Cape. He proved the ocean didn't boil. He shattered a barrier that had imprisoned Europe for centuries. But returning home revealed a new technical crisis. Traditional Mediterranean ships were useless against the relentless southbound winds of the open Atlantic. The solution? The caravel. Light and shallow, it used triangular Arabian lateen sails. For the first time, European sailors could catch the wind at an angle and zigzag forward against it. Mastering the wind, they invented a daring maneuver: the Volta do Mar. Instead of fighting coastal headwinds, they sailed blindly into the open Atlantic, catching deep ocean currents that pushed them safely back to Lisbon. But the deciphering of the Atlantic took decades. Advancing south, the Portuguese built fortified trading posts, a volatile mix of trade and violence with African kingdoms. Here, we face a somber and defining reality of this expansion. By 1444, the first recorded shipment of enslaved Africans arrived in Portugal. This wasn't incidental to age of exploration, it became its dark pillar. It is a stark truth that must be stated clearly. The sugar and gold that would soon flood Europe were built on forced labor. Treating human life as a commodity funded their exploration, establishing a cruel system that would displace millions and cause immeasurable suffering for centuries. In 1453, the Ottoman Empire shatters Constantinople. The traditional gateways to the east are strangled, making the old overland highways impossibly dangerous and expensive. The slow Portuguese crawl down Africa suddenly transforms into a desperate, high-stakes race to find the bottom of the world, bypassing the blockade to open a direct sea route to India. But as voyages push deeper into the unknown, the brutal reality of survival takes hold. Men sleep drenched in salt water, surviving on rotting meat and slime-green water. Then comes the silent killer, scurvy. Starved of nutrients, the human body essentially comes undone. Gums blacken. Old scars mysteriously tear open into fresh wounds. Men face their final moments in the dark hold, hallucinating in agonizing pain. Yet, while the crew rots below deck, above deck, exploration is a cold, calculating science. Captains use astrolabes to calculate latitude, but they have a blind spot, absolutely no way to measure longitude. To survive the east-west void, they rely on dead reckoning, staring at the rushing foam, guessing the ship's speed, and combining it with an hourglass and compass to plot their existence on a blank map. It is an incredibly dangerous gamble. Every single detail is recorded in classified manuals known as roteiros. These are the 15th century equivalent of nuclear codes, guarded by monarchs with the ultimate penalty, while foreign spies desperately try to steal them in the shadows. The decisive turning point hits in 1488. Captain Bartolomeu Dias pushes further south than any European dared. A massive 13-day storm batters his fleet, dragging them blindly into the open ocean. When the sea finally calms, Dias steers east to find the African coast. Nothing but water. Realizing the storm blew him past the continent, he turns north. Finally, land. The coastline now stretched northeast. He had done it. The storm had dragged him completely around the southern tip of Africa, proving the Atlantic and Indian Oceans were connected. On the voyage home, he finally spotted the massive, rocky peninsula they had been blown past. He named it the Cabo das Tormentas, the Cape of Storms. But back in Lisbon, King João II instantly recognized the implication and renamed it the Cabo da Boa Esperança, the Cape of Good Hope. Because if you can round Africa, you can reach India. The sea route to Asia was now open. By 1492, a newly unified Spain watches Portugal's success with envy. Fresh off the Reconquista, King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella are hungry to compete for global wealth. Enter a persistent and ambitious sailor named Christopher Columbus. His pitch is radical. Forget the long route around Africa. Reach Asia's spice market simply by sailing west, straight across the open Atlantic. But his entire proposal is built on a massive mathematical error. He severely underestimates the size of the Earth. He pitches Portugal first. They reject him. Their geographers know his math is fatally flawed. No ship could carry enough food for an ocean that wide. He takes his plan to Spain. Spanish scholars also call his numbers impossible. But Spain is losing the maritime race. Isabella and Ferdinand realize the ultimate prize is worth the risk of losing 3 small ships. They decide to bet on a math error. On August 3rd, 1492, Columbus set sail with 87 men, heading west into the void. Weeks pass with no land in sight. The relentless westbound wind fills the crew with dread. How will they ever sail back? Fear breeds mutiny. They are sailing into a total void. To manage the rising panic, Columbus cooks the books. He keeps 2 logs, a true one and a fake one showing a shorter distance to hide how far they've truly gone. On October 12th, 1492, after more than a month at sea, a lookout finally spots land. Columbus steps onto the Bahamas. He encounters the indigenous Taino people. Utterly convinced he has reached the outer islands of Asia, the Indies. He calls them Indians. He is dead wrong. The world he just stumbled upon was entirely unknown to Europe, but was already the home of millions of people. His mathematical delusion had delivered him straight into the heart of the Americas. The Spanish immediately raise their royal standards, claiming the land. When Columbus spots the Taino wearing gold ornaments, he sees the means to fund his ultimate obsession, a holy crusade. Viewing the natives simultaneously as souls to be converted and bodies to be put to work, the mission violently shifts to extraction. The Spanish institute the encomienda system, a legal fiction that forces indigenous people into brutal, unpaid labor in mines and plantations. But the Europeans' most devastating weapon was biological. Isolated for millennia, the Americas had zero genetic immunity to Old World microbes like smallpox and measles. European ships were essentially floating biohazards. The result is a demographic apocalypse. Within decades, entire civilizations collapse, wiping out over half the native population in one of the most severe disasters in human history. Yet, this massive biological collision rewired the entire planet. Europeans brought horses, pigs, and deadly diseases to the Americas. In return, they took back potatoes, maize, and cassava. Historian Alfred Crosby famously coined a term for this: the Columbian Exchange. These calorie-rich superfoods thrived where traditional grains failed. They triggered massive population explosions across Europe and Africa, and eventually helped triple the population of China. News of Columbus's voyage triggers an immediate crisis. Spain claims they've found the shortcut to Asia. The Pope intervenes, drawing a boundary line that heavily favors Spain. Portugal, furious at the threat to its hard-won monopoly, rejects the Pope's decree and readies for war. To prevent a catastrophic collision, the two rivals negotiate directly. In 1494, they sign the Treaty of Tordesillas, Tratado de Tordesillas. They take a map and draw a vertical line straight down the center of the globe. Everything to the west goes to Spain. Everything to the east belongs to Portugal. With a single stroke of a pen, two European nations divide the entire Earth between them, completely ignoring the millions of people who already lived there. Portugal knows Columbus returned with some gold and foreign plants, but crucially, no spices. The true prize still waits around Africa. In July 1497, Vasco da Gama is sent to finish the job. Armed with highly classified roteros, he executes an insane maneuver. He steers his 4 ships completely away from the coast, plunging deep into the South Atlantic Void to catch the perfect winds. For 93 agonizing days and 10,000 kilometers, they see absolutely nothing but water. After brutally battling currents for a month to round the Cape of Good Hope, they push up East Africa into waters entirely uncharted by Europeans. But they don't find an empty sea. To their surprise, they stumble into a highly sophisticated, bustling trade network connecting Africa, the Persian Gulf, and India. Securing a local pilot in modern-day Kenya, da Gama crosses the Arabian Sea. On May 20th, 1498, his anchors drop in Calicut, India. The impossible is done. He has finally reached India by sea. The meeting with the local ruler is a profound cultural shock. Da Gama presents his gifts: striped cloth, brass basins, and honey. To a society trading in diamonds and fine silk, it's a joke. The wealthy merchants mock the Portuguese as little more than unwashed pirates. Departing under severe hostility, da Gama manages to buy a small cargo of spices with gold. But the return voyage is a nightmare. Ignoring local warnings, he fights the Indian Ocean winds. Sickness wipes out half his crew, including his own brother. He is forced to burn one of his ships because there simply aren't enough living men left to sail it. In September 1499, he limps back into Lisbon. The sheer human toll is staggering. Of the 170 men who set sail, only 55 survive. The small cargo of spices he brought back sells for 60 times the cost of the entire expedition, proving that the direct sea route to India was commercially viable. Soon after, Portuguese fleets cross the Atlantic to claim Brazil. There they build a highly profitable sugar empire. As indigenous societies collapse from disease, Portugal dramatically escalates the transatlantic slave trade to fuel it, condemning millions of human beings to grueling, shortened lives in the cane fields. Portugal realizes a harsh truth. They cannot compete in the East through trade. They have nothing Asia wants. But they have one advantage. Their Atlantic-tested ships are floating fortresses armed with heavy bronze cannons. When they return in 1502, it is not as humble merchants, it is as conquerors. Using brutal naval artillery, they bombard coastal cities, sink fleets, and forge a violent monopoly, imposing themselves on a world that never invited them. While Portugal builds its Eastern Empire, Spain transforms the Americas. Cortés topples the Aztec Empire with 500 men. Pizarro shatters the Inca with fewer. The motive is always the same: extract wealth, above all, silver. In 1545, Potosí's silver floods the globe, crossing the Pacific on Manila galleons, trading directly with China, permanently wiring the Americas, Europe, Africa, and Asia together for the first time in history. The Catholic Church also follows this new global trade with its ideological invasion, Jesuits mapping souls the same way navigators mapped coastlines. And as the 16th century closes, new rivals crash in. The Dutch build the VOC, history's first multinational corporation, and crack Portugal's monopoly not with armies, but with a breach of trust. A Dutch insider publishes the classified Roteiros, handing the Indian Ocean to Northern Europe. The English plant the aggressive seeds of their empire in North America, Jamestown. The world enters a new era. It is no longer just kings exploring the map. It is massive joint stock companies waging corporate wars and ruling empires across thousands of miles of ocean around the globe. The age of exploration ended when the blank spaces on the map were filled. But the machine it set in motion never stopped. When you eat a tomato in Italy, you are eating the legacy of the Columbian exchange. When you drink coffee from Brazil, it is part of a system built on land and labor seized by force. The borders of many nations, the languages, the religions, the food, the diseases, all were drawn in the fires of this era. That is not a comfortable thought, and it shouldn't be. But the ordinary people who brave the unknown could never foresee the catastrophic and extraordinary consequences of their courage. For better or worse, we are the reality of a connected world that started 600 years ago.